large city school districts across the country. And with us tonight, we have Delquan, of course, introduce himself. We have, I think, Chief Murphy's on here. Chief Dennis is running the PowerPoint across the country. And we have Chris Perkins, who's going to help me present. We have Chief Operations Delquan, of course, introduce himself. We have, I think, Chief Murphy's on here. Chief Dennis is running the PowerPoint across the country. We have Chris Perkins. So before we deliver the overview of our proposal, I think it's important for us to review some of the safety measures that we currently have in place. If you look at the first set of bullets, so before we deliver the overview inside our school, right now we have a mental health practitioner and a counselor in place. And if you look at every school, first set of bullets, mental health is the overview inside our school. Right now we have a mental health practitioner and a counselor in place. And if you look at every school, first set of bullets, mental health is the overview inside our school. Right now we have a mental health practitioner and every school. We also have added a court liaison who will serve, support, and respond to students who are court involved. Because one thing we feel is important, we want to keep our students in school and we want to transition them back. And we're definitely sending the message that being involved in the court is not a death just when it comes to education in JCPS. We want to make sure that we welcome our students back and have someone who is their advocate. And lastly, we have a specialist for violence prevention who promotes health and wellness. We also have added a court liaison who will support and respond to students who are court involved. What they feel is important. Chris and I on this slide are going to give us into and we want to transition them back and basically the combination of the investigation to be involved in the court is not support school. Because after reviewing our current resources that I just went over, welcome our students back and have someone who is their advocate. And lastly, we have a specialist for violence prevention who promotes health and wellness. We also have added a with someone that they trust, they can reach out to, a person who is in the school every single day. And that's why we created this safety administrator that you see here on the left side of your screen. This person will be employed within each middle school. We will have one in every high school and will be part of the school administrative staff. They're going to build some relationships with students, coordinate all aspects of school safety, with the assistance of the with the assistance of the AP and the principal. They're going to manage safety-related issues at the school, and this person is going to report directly to the principal. So they're going to be a valuable member of the school team. And Chief Perkins is going to give you an overview of the concept of the school safety officer that's going to provide support to schools.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us tonight. As Chief Moore explained, through this process, we've been very intentional about increasing our support in schools, but we have remained equally committed to increasing our support to schools, and that's a continuing theme you'll hear throughout the conversation tonight, supporting within schools and support to schools. So to complement the in-school safety administrator, we believe it's equally as imperative that we have the right district staff to effectively and efficiently respond to significant security concerns and manage those both professionally and appropriately. And as a reminder, we currently employ 15 district security monitors, or patrol officers, if you will. They are sworn special law enforcement officers. Currently, they are not armed. These officers provide law enforcement support to our schools, and what we're doing with this proposal is to enhance that support by adding an additional 15 patrol officers. These school safety officers would be JCPS employees. They'd be trained by us with an understanding of our commitment to both safety and equity. And so let's look at the concept proposal. The school safety officers will be patrolling approximately 3 to 7 schools in a specified geographic zone. More officers will be hired so that we could better serve every school. They would serve as an armed law enforcement officer, again, a sworn law enforcement officer would be armed. They would be partnering with the school safety administrators, and they would be the primary point of contact within the school. These school safety officers would report directly to the Security and Investigations Department. Very similar, again, to our current district security monitors, but increasing the numbers. Chief Moore, I think you're going to talk a little bit about the purpose of the safety administrator.
All right, sorry, I was on mute. Here are a few more details about the purpose of the safety administrators, and the first thing you see on there, this person is going to foster positive school culture and climate. And the second thing we think is equally as important: build relationship of trust with students and employees, having that relationship with both role groups. And we want to make sure this person maintains a positive relationship with school stakeholders, including members that are on this call right now. And lastly, we want this person to coordinate all aspects of school safety, including the physical plant drills such as fire, tornado, earthquake drills, trainings that happen before school starts and during school, threat monitoring, threat assessment, school safety plans, and incident interventions. And there are other aspects of the job that we expect this person to be responsible for. But one thing that they're not going to be responsible for is student discipline. Although they will be part of the team, they will be part of the investigation, and they will be working closely with students who have some discipline issues. They're not going to be ultimately responsible for the disciplinary actions handed down to students. Chief Perkins, please add is going to give you some more details on the purpose of the school security office.
Chief Moore, and again, I want to reiterate what he was mentioning earlier about having a group of officers who are able to respond to any issue on JCPS property. But again, they will be trained by us and they will report to us. By the officers being JCPS employees, this embeds a level of quality control regarding not only training, but the support services that they are familiar with. It extends above and beyond what law enforcement officers require in their training regimen. Chief Moore is going to talk a little bit more about some of the training here in a few minutes. By employing the school safety officers, it affords us the opportunity for direct oversight as well as district onboarding. Again, we currently have a set of 15 patrol officers who fit this description, but we need to add to our forces to be able to support more efficiently all of our schools. I left one thought off that last slide. I apologize. Again, similar to the school safety officers, the school safety administrators, their job is And a while back, some of you may recall, when we began laying the foundation for this proposal, we invested a significant time in collaborating with local community leadership, engaging as thought partners to make sure we took a robust approach in identifying essential relationships with local support service agencies. Again, I believe many of you on this call actually helped create this list of community organizations that will be paramount for our school safety personnel to be connected with. So as part of their duties initially, one of the first responsibilities will be for these school safety administrators and the school safety officers to get to know the mental health services, substance abuse assessment and treatment providers, child protective services, local shelters, domestic violence services, and family counseling agencies. And Chief Moore is going to talk a little bit about the scope of some of their training.
Thank you, Chief Perkins. And as I go through these trainings real briefly with you, really think about the responsibilities that we discussed and the purpose of those two positions. We really wanted the trainings to match or mirror what we want to see from these positions. I think it's only appropriate for that to be the case. And we did work, and just a bit on his point, we also worked with our community partners to build this list. And this list of training was proposed by a group that represent our common goal of creating a safe environment that was grounded in equity. And I hope that you see that in the list of trainings here. The first bullets represent approximately 60 hours annually of training for both school safety officers and safety administrators. There will be a cross-cultural communication and or implicit bias training, de-escalating training, training in the art of de-escalating students before they get to that peak level and can't come back to us as quickly. Restorative practices, trauma-informed care, safe crisis management, MTSS, multi-tiered support system, and also will be trained in PBIS, a highly research-based behavior program, positive behavior intervention and support that really focus on rewarding and recognizing positive behavior. Students with IDEA or 504 protections, they will be trained in our student support and behavior intervention handbook. That's our internal document that governs our behavior. You'll hear us refer to the SSBIH. That's what we're talking about. Bullying resources, new employee training, just to transition into what it means to be a JCPS employee. And then we want to leave the flexibility to add any other training as the job develops and evolves over time. Now, exclusive training for our SSOs under Senate Bill 1, which you'll see is about 40 hours annually. You have state mandated training for any school resource officer that is mandated by the state. We also have Peace Officer Professional Standards certification known as POPS. And just a quick background on how we landed on the proposal that we're showing in front of you. When we started the work, we thought it was important to note that we went and visited many districts across the state, and you can see Fayette County, our neighboring county, was not as large as us, but had some elements that we thought we wanted to look at. Although we did learn quite a bit from these districts, we were not totally completely sold on any of the models, but we didn't throw out any of the good things that we saw from some of these models. Our feedback from the community partners was clear that a security team was needed, but there needed to be more. We wanted more than just a security team. We think that presenting these two positions in tandem gets us to that need and of supporting our students and maintaining a secure environment for our schools. So that's just real quick in a nutshell of our proposal, without getting too deep into the weeds. And we don't want to get too deep because we want to get some feedback from you. And this is our time to get some feedback from you. Delquan is going to lead us in this feedback discussion.
All right. We appreciate that, gentlemen. So I'll be facilitating the feedback process with the rest of our time. We want to make sure we focus and save time for your input. More specifically, we like the feedback on the two proposed positions that were presented on the screen. And in doing so, I ask you if you could please type your name in the chat if you want to have a question or some feedback. And know that we want to answer your questions, but we also want to make sure that we don't spend a whole lot of time answering your questions because we do have ACRE members on here as well as Black Caucus, so we want to make sure we're doing that. And actually, Miss Mary Barnes will be taking notes for us, and then also we will have after this presentation, we will send you an email with an opportunity of a Google Doc where you can add more information. Even if you say it tonight, we would still like for you to send us that information so we can make sure we capture everything. And then, of course, some of the stuff that we've already showed tonight we've met with other groups, and so we made some changes and some feedback. But please know that we're doing everything we can to make the adjustment. Actually, what you see before you has came as a result of a lot of feedback, reaps, and engagement. So on that note, we're going to look in the chat and see who is first. We want to go to Kendall Boyd.
Yeah, I'm here. Basically, will these two positions be like act as a deterrent? Like, will students be intimidated or scared because of the presence of these individuals, or will these individuals sort of provide some of this shadow over student engagement? I just want to avoiding the same situation we had at J-Town a few years ago.
I can start that off, and then Chief Purpose, if you want to jump in. But yeah, that's the whole purpose, especially around that safety administrator. If you look at the purpose of that person to build relationship, and that's why we want to make sure that person's not going to be handing out the disciplinary action. This person's not going to be the intimidator and the enforcer. This person is going to, number one, help keep children in our building, because we know the disproportionalities that we see with our Black and brown children. So that's going to be so important for that person to help keep kids in our building. And if there comes a time there is some disciplinary action where that kid is removed for a very short time period, help re-engage them back into the learning process. The school safety officer will not be inside the building. They will be in a geographic area and will give support to schools when needed, when called upon. But we'll work closely with the safety administrator to make sure that it is the right time to call in that school safety officer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Ben Johnson, please.
Thanks. So first, a quick suggestion, ironically based on the question I was just asked. Well, I guess it is sort of a question. Was there any thought to creating something like a student safety council or something like that, where the young people can interact with these officers on a regular basis, even if it's monthly, bi-weekly, maybe 2 students out of every grade level, so they actually develop a relationship away from incidents and things of that nature. I think that's important. But my actual question was, how are they going to be trained and hired, and what was the rationale behind deciding that they would be armed?
I'll start out with the training and the hiring process, just real briefly. The training that you saw that I had on that screen will some will be internal training, but some of them will come from some of our outside partners that we have to help with and assist with the training. But we want to make sure that we really honor our pillars and our focus in our district, and particularly our racial equity pillar that we have. So we wanted those training to be grounded in equity. The hiring process, we're still kind of iron that out. We do have a job description. for that. There's certain legal things that we have to make sure that we are going by when we go with the hiring process. But we received some feedback from some of our other focus groups, and we'll be very interested to hear from you guys any feedback when it comes to the hiring process. And thanks for the feedback about the students. That's the second or third time someone mentioned having a council or having kids the opportunity to get some feedback. We just haven't folded it into our presentation yet. So I appreciate that feedback.
I have some experience forming those kind of councils, if so feel free to reach out if I can be of assistance.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. All right. We have Terrence Sullivan who will go next.
Sure. And one of my questions was just I didn't quite understand, and I'm just thinking of this being presented to a larger group for the board meeting. But I have a couple. One was on, I didn't quite gather what a gun-involved youth was, so I was just curious about that. But then I had a couple other questions, like I was just wondering I'm thinking of climate and response and how students could feel. So I was curious what a uniform would look like, what the cars would look like, and then the name, having officer in the title just feels still prison complex to me. And same with the verbiage, talking about the patrols and all of that. And you could say the same things without using police type jargon. And I think that makes it more palatable for some people while still accomplishing the same objective. And so I didn't know if some of those things were up for consideration, any type of conversation, just making it, you can still do the same thing. I think it makes sense, but just how you address it and how you present it, I think that having that verbiage change even could make a difference in how it's taken in.
Yeah, we appreciate the feedback, Terrence. And then he also had a question as well. I believe it was, could someone, Chief Moore, if you can define gun-involved youth?
Yeah, that would be a youth who either has community gun charges or possible gun charges within the within our schools.
Okay. All right. Next, we have Ms. Marian Vassar.
Yeah, so Terrence actually took many of the words right out of my mouth. I'm very concerned about the term officer. Something else that was listed in the presentation, which I imagine probably provides some sense of security for certain people, it does not for me as a parent of 3 Black boys. So when we say, and it was almost like it was a highlight that these will be officers who have served as armed, sworn law enforcement officers. To me, I hear a whole bunch of racist baggage that has come along with them. So I do understand that you want to make sure that you have qualified people in the schools, but I'm just wondering, and I did look at the list of training, but I want to know what intentional efforts will be implemented in order to prevent the narrative that we know with LMPD and many other law enforcement agencies from coming into our school. The other thing that I was really concerned, or not concerned about, well, no, I am concerned about it. We can have a list of 50 trainings. I'm most concerned with accountability. So you can put somebody through implicit bias training. What happens when their numbers still reflect implicit bias? So I'm concerned about that as well. And I do also agree, or I want to know more about how the cars will be marked, how they will be dressed, and what engagement they will have with students beyond safety issues. And I'd really like us to move forward to a different model of envisioning what safety looks like instead of it just being law enforcement officers. I have one more comment, then I'm going to shut up. It's a little concerning that we're going to make sure, and I know some of this is we're legally bound to, but that every school has these officers, yet we've only hired 4 mental health counselors. So moving in a direction where we balance those resources will be great. And thank you all for this work. This was good information.
All right. Thank you for the feedback. Chief Perkins, you want to take that?
No. Sorry. I apologize. Got a little congestion going on. No, I appreciate the feedback. I'm trying to write down notes as you all are speaking. It's affirming to some of our thoughts and aligns also with some of the other feedback we've gotten. And you're right, to your point, we want to make sure, to me, this is an opportunity to set a model that could be mirrored or at least picked up by other school districts around the country. And I think we've tried to be very intentional. Maybe that didn't come out as forthright as we wanted it to be in this presentation, but we've been very, very intent to commit to words like relationships, trust, collaboration, safety, culture, support, partnering. And so first and foremost, we want to make sure that is the essence of what we're trying to do here. And then we want to make sure we promote safety as well. And so, all of your feedback, I'm taking notes. I know Jonathan and Amy are probably taking notes as well. So I appreciate it and look forward to getting back with you all.
Okay. Please, you all, if we missed something, just please put in the chat. But more importantly, if you have a question, more than likely it could be turned into some feedback, to a feedback statement. So please capture that so we can make sure we get that on the follow-up, please. Next, we have Kenyatta Bacon, I believe, with the Black Caucus, and we want to make sure that yes, this is anchor meeting, but we want to make sure that Black Caucus of JCTA knows that they're engaged too, and would like for them to participate in the feedback.
Thank you for allowing me to ask a couple questions. I'm really excited about being able to hear this proposal on the ground level. Couple questions though, just wanting to hear more about what the current responsibilities of the in-school security officers are and what type of training that they are receiving. And then beyond that question, I noticed a lot of the concerns were based more towards like violent offenses. So I know that another big issue is the amount of students that are identified or found with drugs on them at school. What are we doing to support those students? And can we include like drug treatment or counseling through the MHPs as a possible solution for addressing those concerns? Thank you.
All right, Chief Moore, would you like to take that, sir, on the school safety administrators?
Yeah, I thought she said the school safety officer, but were you talking about the current in-school monitors, Ms. Bacon?
I am.
Okay. Yeah, they do receive SCM training. Their training is not, at this time, is not as extensive as we're proposing for the safety administrators that we have on there, but I like that as some feedback as them going through that same training. I think that's good feedback, and that's one we have not received yet, so I appreciate that. And I agree with you with our mental health practitioners, and we have 4 that we hired newly, but we have some in every school as well. So we do have some out there, but being intentional with having some drug based resources on here, I think might be important to have too. So thank you for your feedback. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And I also want to make the note, I apologize. I missed the important piece that was brought up previously by Ms. Vassar. I don't know if we have an answer for that as opposed to just basically use it as feedback, but accountability for officers around how their practice and their service. And so for both positions. So I don't know if we have an answer for that, Chief Moore, Chief Perkins, but I just want to make sure that's captured.
Yeah, we got that, and we track disproportionality data even now. So even before this position, we track disproportionality data and address those situations. We have plans at every school to address disproportionality data for our Black and Brown students and our ECE students.
All right. And next, I believe we have Tyra Walker.
Thank you. Yes, one of my questions was answered, and that was the tools we're going to use to ensure. You just answered that for me. And I do want to thank you for all the hard work that you all have done to put this together for us. But I also want to know, I know they're going to have these trainings. Will these trainings be ongoing? Like they should have them every 6 months or yearly?
Okay. Wow.
Yes, they will. They will be annually. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can ask everyone to just be conscious to make sure your mute is on until it's time for you to participate, please. Thank you. If everyone can make sure their mute's on. All right. Next we have Phyllis Clark.
Hi, everybody. I really appreciate this information being shared and the emphasis that was placed on supporting not just to the school, but within the school. My question is around training. And the first bullet that I read, I'm not looking at it now, but I think it was around cross-cultural communication and implicit bias, which is good. But I also wonder if there is a way that we can focus a little bit deeper in terms of cultural competency. And because communication involves just that interaction between one person and the other and how to go about that. But when we think about cultural competency, the people in the authoritative position now have to be forced to, well, not forced, but to engage with their own worldview and understanding how they identify with other worldviews. And so I think there could be something really interesting and helpful with knowing a little bit more about oneself in terms of skills and abilities and even education, just to take it a little bit further down the communication trail. I do appreciate what someone said about training will be ongoing, but to me, 1 year or once per year could be emphasized a little bit more in terms of once a semester. We continually need training on all aspects of all of this. It's not a one-time thing per year, in my view. And so I'm just wondering if that can be considered. Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. Chief Perkins, would you like to follow up with any points about training?
No, but yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'd like to follow up. I apologize. No, I think those are great points. And again, I think that's something that we can do a better job of explaining throughout the presentation is the types of training, the frequency, and how much and how often it's repeated. To your point about the deeper focus on cultural competency, I mean, that's something that we're working on now currently with my executive administrator of security investigations on culturally responsive leadership. And a big part of that is starting off with just kind of a self-evaluation of our own worldviews and implicit biases to understand how we can not only do a better job ourselves, but how can we lead the people that we're working with as well to be more responsive to that. So I think that's a great point, and I look forward to digging into that work more.
All right, thank you. Next we have Liaison.
Can you unmute me?
You're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to see that Jefferson County Public Schools are working on the safety plan. Of course, I do not favor having policemen in the school. I do have several questions. What are the qualifications for the safety administrator? that test is pretty heavy, and I'm wondering, where are you going to find people who have all of this? That's number one. Number two, I'm elementary, and elementary schools are always left out. You don't hear about a lot of things happening in the elementary schools, but those little kids need a safety administrator. Plus, the principal does not have, elementary principals do not have as much help as middle school principals or high school principals. So I would thoroughly say, please put safety administrators in the elementary schools, because that's where the kids start and principals need help. My other question is, I'm glad to see that they're mental health professionals, but what's the ratio? Is it 1 to 100 or 1 to 200? It needs to be small, because these, and especially these young kids, are horrified. They have all kinds of problems. And my thing is, if you start early, you might eliminate some of these big problems. The other question is, how soon is this going to happen?
All right. So what I heard was what are some of the qualifications for the safety administrators?
Right.
And then, of course, is it possible to improve the ratio for mental health practitioners for students? What kind of support from elementary? And then, what was the last part? I'm sorry.
My last question is, they need safety administrators in elementary schools.
In elementary schools, right. Okay.
Elementary principals have a lot to do. They do not have the help that middle school and high school principals have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your feedback, Ms. Owens. And we are still shaping out the job descriptions and qualification for our safety administrators. Right now, we don't see us keeping it narrow where you have to be certified. So it will be a classified position. So that opens it up to a wider audience, and we don't want to miss out on some qualified individuals who can push in and come in and be a real valuable asset to our administrative teams. And you are right about the elementary support. I think over the past 8-9 years, we have added assistant principals to every elementary school, so they do have a little more help over the past 8 years. So there is an assistant principal at the elementary level, and they do share. They at least have a half-time mental health practitioner in every elementary school and a counselor in every elementary school. So there is some help. But I did note your feedback on having a safety administrator at the elementary level.
Can I say something? I'm a retired elementary principal. I did not have an assistant with me, but I had a lot of special needs kids. And when you say you only have a half day for a mental health person, I think that is not good. You need a whole person, because the counselor cannot handle all of that. The counselor has special needs, and in some schools they do have a counselor for special needs, but I wish some way you can put a full-time safety administrator in elementary schools.
All right, thank you. Next we have Eva Estillo.
Hi. Yes, I'm here.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Delquan, and thank you so much for the information that we're presenting today. I have a quick question regarding the language services. I'm working with La Casita Center, and the first things that I think about it is for the schools, those schools in where we have a lot of our community, for the immigrant community, refugee community, and the Latinx community. So I'm sure when having these interactions between the safety administrator and the safety officer, the need for having language services will come up. And so I'm curious to know who is providing that language services for those interactions, to have interpreters either on the line or inside or in person. And if you are considered on the list of the trainings, to have a training that can support the safety administrator and the safety officers, to understand and how to better work with interpreters. I can tell you for experience, for professional experience, that when we're working with other organizations, many times it's not the lack of the resource, so it's not the lack of having the line for interpretation, but it's more than the lack of not being so prepared to be able to work with interpreters in the moment live, or to be able to work with translations too. So just curious to know what you're using, if it is in person, which agency is providing this service, and if you're considering that training. I do have some other thoughts, but I'm going to just drop it in the chat to make sure there's time for everybody else. But my last, just curious to know from you all if these trainings are required or if they're optionals. And if you can share with us the list of the organizations that are going to be providing the wraparound services. Thank you. I hope I didn't drop that much information at once.
Okay. I heard a list of the organizations providing wraparound training. Are the trainings required? Are they optional? And then, of course, the language barrier. Now, are we going to be utilizing translation services, or will there actually be a live interpreter in the moment when it's necessary? And so, Chief Perkins and Chief Moore, probably Chief Perkins, you want to take that on?
I mean, the thing that I would speak to most on that is that, these will function as supports within the school. And so, that's something we'll have to be mindful of, especially with the training. And I think part of that will come in with the cultural responsiveness as well, but also just recognizing the potential for language barriers, and make sure that there's effective lines of communication. But most of our schools already have those mechanisms in place, and so that would be an integral part of serving as a liaison between both the administrators and, if need be, the officers as well, for that type of responsive support.
Okay, great. Next we have Ms. Barnes. Ms. Mary Barnes.
Hi, sorry. I had to find my mute button. Sort of like a reiteration of other people's concerns in terms of having uniformed officers with guns. I think that concerns a lot of us. While it does make some people feel safer, I think it makes some people feel decidedly less safe. And sort of to that, I wondered what process you guys had used to get stakeholder feedback prior to developing the plan. So what parents were sort of invited to give their opinion on that, and what were their thoughts?
Chief Moore, would you like to take that? I know we've had some feedback sessions, but this is actually a couple years in the making. So we didn't start this last night, but yet at the same time, we know that it's still a work in progress because what we're doing is so cutting edge. But and we're trying to make it to where we're coming out of the box of the traditional way of doing safety. But Chief Moore, you want to cover that, the uniform issue about feeling safe, and then what parent engagement?
Yeah, and this is that was part of the third feedback that we had on the uniform just from this feedback session. But we also received that same feedback from one or two of the other focus groups. So we definitely have that down and hear your voice on the uniform and the possibility of using a soft uniform, and even looking at the language and title. And then what was the second question?
the parent engagement.
Sorry, and the feedback. A lot of what you see on here is from feedback from months ago, even probably pre-COVID. So a lot of the things that you see on there are from the feedback that we received from a lot of the important stakeholders. And this is, like I mentioned earlier, this is probably like a third or fourth group that we're in front of. Dr. Polio was actually in front of a student group getting feedback from students, because so not only are we getting it from parents, but we are getting feedback from student groups as well. So we are really focused on getting feedback from the most important stakeholders. That includes parents, that includes community members, and it also includes our kids.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone, if you have a question, please type your name in the chat. I'm going by who makes comments in order that hadn't had a chance to speak yet. Ms. Boudreaux, would you like to, if you have a question or feedback, I know your hand has been raised.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm driving, and so I'm not able to type in the chat or see the chat. So thank you so much.
You be safe, and anybody else is driving, y'all have time to be able to get feedback. We just need you to be safe while you operate your vehicle, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, good thing, great presentation, and I appreciate us being able to review this. Because I have been driving, I did want to see when would the presentation be made available to us. That was the one question. And I guess similar to the concerns everybody's asking about armed forces or the armed guards, but I don't think we've heard why that decision was made. So I'm still curious as to that. I would like to highly recommend that I just heard the past comment that that this has been vetted and delivered to various groups, but highly recommend the possibility of an independent accountability review board if we're moving forward with this, especially given the climate of most of the previous officers throughout the country. And then my final question actually is, I think at the beginning of the presentation, school security monitors were mentioned, and they're unarmed. I understood that. My question is, will those be absorbed into the armed officers? Will they be disbanded? Will they be continued? How will that, I guess, that triad work, or will they go away?
All right, so I heard, when will the presentation be available? I know that this is still in draft form. That's the reason why we are getting the feedback, because we want what you all talk about to influence what ultimately comes of this. And then something consistent that was said earlier about the independent board for accountability, which we've seen with other departments. And I think, and I apologize. What was your other question, Kevin?
Well, I wanted to know more so the rationale behind the armed or arming officers. Yes. And then how will the school security monitors be absorbed or disbanded, or what will happen with those? Or will there be two added layers to the existing ones that are already in the school?
Delquan, yeah, I was gonna say I'll start, and Chief Moore or Delquan, feel free to jump in as well. And I think it's a great question, and we thrown a lot at you all tonight, and your feedback is reaffirmed some things that we need to be more clear on. And one of those is that we have a lot of terminology in JCPS, obviously, and we throw it around every day like everyone knows what we're talking about. So I apologize for that. Currently, we have what we refer to as in-school security monitors in most of our middle and high schools and some elementary schools. Those in-school security monitors are school employees. They think of like a hall monitor, if you will. They are there to just supervise class changes, arrival dismissal, things of that nature. They're plainclothes school employees. And again, think in terms of hall monitors. Those are in-school security monitors. We have what we call district security monitors. They work for the Security Investigations Department under my operations division. They are sworn law enforcement officers already. And so we have an entire, if you will, internal police force in JCPS. They complete what's called SLEO, Special Law Enforcement Officer training to get their law enforcement commission. They have all gone through what's called Peace Officer Professional Standards Board, that's POP certification. So they are law enforcement officer, if you will. We've had them for decades, and they've not been armed. And so they are doing the job that we're sort of describing to you tonight. The difference is legislation has changed, mandating that schools have armed police officers in the building. And so when we initially started to work on this a few years ago, that was kind of the original proposal, is that we would place SROs, was the terminology that we used at the time, in schools. And after lots of conversations, community forums, and feedback, we realized there was a lot of mixed feelings about having police officers in our building. And so we thought, how can we take what we currently provide, meet the mandates of state law, to still provide assistance and support to schools, but also provide an extra layer of safety, if you will, within those schools. And that's where the idea of the school safety administrator came from. Was this would be an administrator in a school, not law enforcement, but a school administrator whose job is really just to maintain and preserve the safety within the building. Our current district security monitors, the law enforcement officers, again, what we're looking at doing is doubling the number of those we have available to respond to schools. And they won't be in our schools. They will be responding when there is concerns of a criminal activity going on, or there are reports or threats of imminent danger or violence. So again, they will be responding to schools only when there is concern for life or death. And so they will function much like our current officers are doing, in tandem with local law enforcement agencies when there is a serious concern. I don't know if that provides a little more clarity or not, but again, that it makes it clear to me we've got to expound upon that in greater detail for our audiences. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
All right. Next we'll have Ms. Trumbo, Connie Trumbo.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm at Walla Williams review, and we also have a report. So my concern is officers actually being trained for special schools with special needs students that are at trauma-informed care, trauma-informed schools. So what does that actually look like? What does the training look like? The professional development look like? And them just actually being prepared for what takes place sometimes at the school like that. So I just want to know that our kids are going to be safe under the umbrella of security when it comes to special needs students.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Trumbo. And just for clarity, Ms. Trumbo, you're asking and you're proposing or suggesting that we have more intensive strategic training for both positions when it comes to special schools. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. And then also, do we have a list of organizations that we will be partnering with far as supporting immigrant families and ESL families? Have we developed that list yet? Keith Moore. You're on mute.
Can you repeat that question?
Have we developed a listing of community organizations that we will partner with in order to support our immigrant, Latinx, and ESL families?
Yeah, we're developing that, and we're compiling that. Once we firm up both positions and get feedback from everyone, we'll have more details on some of those things.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Edison.
Okay, good morning. Good afternoon, good evening. So while I was saying that I have a whole bunch of questions too. So I guess my first question is, what is the difference specifically between SSO and SRO? I don't know if that's defined because I'm feeling like it's about the same thing. But my suggestion is, in order to get buy-in, since I know this is law, we have to be accountable and show data around restorative practice, which I don't, because what I see is that our kids are going through a lot of trauma. We already know that in the gun violence and everything, but I see a huge lack in just helping them grievance counseling, and it has to be consistent. Grievance counseling is not 1 or 2 days of something, because, and I've also have had students that have been killed and have been the ones that have done the killing, and most of the time it is related, because we are not grabbing onto those ones that are mourning the first loss and giving them trauma and informed care and conflict resolution. I didn't see that on there, and I know we're not doing it. And that is, these kids have to learn how to deal with conflict. That is why we have the issues that we have. And so I would really love to see where we are moving with grievance counseling, with family counseling. I seen something that said we're doing family counseling, and then conflict resolution. It says something about bully resources. I don't know what that is, but we have to really be intentional. And if we're collecting data around where crimes are happening, then we should be intentional on putting those services. Because again, to my first question, SSO and SRO seems like LMPD, and they're already LMDC. We don't have teachers. They don't have police officers. And so we have problems going everywhere. So the money needs to be allocated in the right position, which is healing for our students. And I would hate to see they self-medicate with drug and their behavior and stuff like that, that they become criminalized when we have not even given them any type of counseling beforehand. So I will stop there.
Or do you want to talk about some of the stuff that we may be currently doing, or some of the stuff that we haven't planned that we push it forward that may not have shown up explicitly in the presentation?
I think we'll just take that feedback and add it to our more detailed plan, Delquan. I really like some of the thoughts that we're getting from him, and it's just and just to speak to that, we wanted to make this high level. We didn't want to give you this 1 hour presentation on some of the things that we're thinking about, and then it not be what is best for our community and for our kids. So right now we're in the gathering feedback stages of a broad plan. We have some ideas, some specifics, but we don't want to get too far down the road and present a plan that is not conducive to our community at large. So we do have some things in place that for our kids when it comes to culture and climate, when it comes to drug treatment, when it comes to counseling. But I don't think this might be the best platform to get into the weeds of that right now. But thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it.
Yes, we definitely appreciate that feedback. All right. It is now 6:37, and we have probably about another 20 or so minutes. Is anyone else that's not get the chance to speak would like a chance to offer feedback or ask a question?
Delquan, this is Kevin.
Okay. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, I had a thought. I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but I know as a youth services coordinator, we are taught to acclimate ourselves to our community, be it our students and the staff and parents as well. I would like to see, and I don't know if this is something that you could call these people, but safety specialist I like better than officer. Y'all can use that if you want to, but safety specialist, if they would be able to maybe facilitate some sort of safety workshops or cyber safety or cyber security, something to get, to build that rapport with the school communities that they would be working with. I think that would go a long way. Oh, I like that, climate and safety specialist. So yes,
I'll send an invoice.
Yeah, well, I get part of
I'm about to say, is this gonna cost us?
We'll split it 50-50.
While you all on this call, all the feedback is free. So
darn,
you didn't read the disclaimer. You need to read the disclaimer.
I guess not, but something like that to have that involvement with the schools that they are working with, so that I would hate to see these people in the schools and not have some sort of rapport with the school community. So I think that would go a long way.
Yes,
that's just my 2 cents.
No, we appreciate that that feedback. Also, we have another question from Mr. Ben Johnson, please.
Wait a minute now. I was
I'm sorry.
Before being, we're not going to do sexism on this call now.
I'm sorry.
No, that wasn't sexism. That was just priority. Would you go ahead?
Well, you jumped in. I thought you got your turn.
No, I didn't. No, and mine is really quick. And it's a recommendation, a strong one, that as we're going through the hiring process, that we are requesting personnel files, because what we don't want to do is have people in the schools that have a history of harassing Black, brown, immigrant, and communities with people living with disabilities. So I think that would be useful.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And also, I don't know if that was detailed or not. I know that we're looking to do some testing and assessment when people apply as well, to identify some of those biases on the front end before they get far down the road of the hiring process. So yes, we are aware of that.
For our school administrators, Mayor, we have a racial equity screener that everyone has to go through during the application process. So this would not be it will be the same for this administrator. So that's a start, but I definitely get what you're saying. I mean, we still need to dig into the background. Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, and actually following up on that question, if legally we can't get that, like say they're former officers or whatever, I believe there should be some definitive statement where they have to sign and affirm that they haven't been suspended or terminated or resigned under those kind of circumstances, because they can be held accountable for that up to termination. Because I could really hear somebody saying, "Oh, we don't release that kind of information on our employees." Make them sign a definitive statement about that, similar to, do you have a criminal charge in your background or hanging over your head kind of thing. That's pretty standard. But I just had 2 quick questions. I've heard a lot of talk about equity, and I know we have, I think I heard 15 current officers or whatever the position title is. I would like to know the demographic breakdown of those 4 persons. And then also, how did we land on the cities that were studied? I'm familiar with most of them, and they are significantly different than Louisville, particularly larger. I mean, I didn't hear Cincinnati, Nashville, Knoxville, some cities of more similar size and closer in proximity. So the demographic breakdown, and how were the cities chosen that were studied?
You said the demographic breakdown of what, though? I'm sorry.
Then did I hear that there were 15 people currently employed in a similar role here? Security officers.
Oh, okay.
All right. Chief Perkins.
Yeah, I'll get that for you. The demographic, the current security monitors, and the cities that we studied, how those were selected. I've got it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard being speak about signing a disclaimer. That just doesn't fly for me. Like, I would rather for us to be able to see records. I know that sometimes there is some confidentiality clauses, but I don't know. We need to just be vigilant. We can see their background versus us just always assuming and going off of their word. I would just rather I would feel safer if we knew.
So just so I can clarify, I said if we could not get their records, because if an employer won't release them, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right. I think this is where both and it applies. I know specifically what we're aware of what you're talking about, the issues with other police departments in the past, and I think Ben's concern is sometimes there's a culture of covering others' flaws from
right, absolutely.
Exactly. And so if that's the case, then I don't know. I wouldn't feel safe us not being able, because we do know that does happen. So what are they covering up? So I would feel safer that we would work with people that we can actually get the file versus those that we have to potentially sit back and think what are the what ifs later on. I'm not comfortable with our students being in the hands of the what ifs.
Got you.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's my turn.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Florence.
Okay. It's my understanding. Well, first of all, I'd like to know if it's possible for community people to be on the interviews with the candidates to give their input. The second thing, I understand, and this might have changed, but I understand that the SSO bill will be discussed, voted on tomorrow at the state legislature, and I was just wondering, I know most of those Republicans are for having officers in the school, and I was wondering if JCPS will be able to present their proposal before they vote on this.
Chief Perkins, you want to take the phone?
I think that's a great question. I don't know the answer to it.
I hope you do.
I'll make sure that's reported up the chain now and relayed. So I don't know if that's something we have the capacity to do, to share and present prior to that.
But I as we all know, we cannot control the legislature because a lot of things will be going on differently right now. But from what I've been told, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Purchase, Chief Moore, and Chief Dennis, but we have shared this plan with the Jefferson County delegation to the legislature, and so far we've been in support. We've gotten support. Now that may things change in politics, but that's the length of breath that I know that Bud can speak to.
That's my understanding.
Any other questions? We got about 13 minutes left.
This has been very enlightening, and I'm behind it. It's not as perfect. Nothing is perfect, but this is a great start, and I would truly like to see, whatever the community could do to help make this pass and not be under the state's law about having SOS officers in the schools. Whatever we can do, I wish you let us know.
All right. Well, let's yes. Well, I think that's one thing that I can say, that based on this plan, the SSO officers will not be in the schools. The safety administrator will be in the school. Okay, so if if no one else has any points, anyone from the Black Caucus or JCPA, did we give everyone a chance to speak? All right.
I think everyone had something to say. I will have one last little thing because I just saw that does this have to pass the board? Because it's out on the news right now that it's already been unveiled, like this is what it is. I guess I'm a little confused.
No, it has to be board approved.
So you want to go over that schedule again, please, Chief Moore?
Absolutely. And again, I want to thank you guys for the excellent feedback. You guys have some great ideas, and hopefully when you see this plan, when we unveil it to its fullest, that you'll see that we acknowledged and took in some of your ideas. I don't know if we'll stick with that particular name, but I'm kind of have a little fondness for that specialist. So we'll see how far that goes. I'm just one vote. But as you can see, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all of this feedback that we're getting from you guys and really start to lay out a complete plan that we're going to take before the board. So we're down to about 2 weeks in order to compile all this feedback, make all the tweaks, make all the adjustments before we take it to the board. Tomorrow, we're going to have a work session with the board. It's going to be very similar to what you see now as far as a really broad, high-level presentation. And then we're going to take it, we're going to have a virtual town hall for additional feedback from community members that we can open it up to a bigger and a wider audience. That's going to be on Wednesday night. And then sometime in mid-January, we're going to have a special call policy meeting. And then on the 25th, we're going to take this proposal before the board for a vote. So we're down to about 2 weeks to get all of this into a complete plan. And that's kind of the next step for us as a leadership team. But definitely appreciate your input. Did I miss any steps on there in my cabinet members? Did I miss anything that we got coming up? Okay. All right. So
I'm sorry, I'm not a cabinet member, but yes, I am. I'm deeming myself one now, especially because you keep getting free advice. But if I might just add, moving forward, more time would be great, especially if we're serious about getting feedback. JCPS is notorious for getting people in meetings and in quick spaces to give feedback. It's usually limited with time. And then when it's rolled out, we hear, we got critical feedback from stakeholders. So just make sure that, moving forward, like the 25th, that's not nearly enough time during a pandemic for people to rearrange their schedules to get to a town hall to give some significant feedback. So I just wanted to add that. We got to do better.
Okay. And we apologize for the shortness of time. And I definitely hear what you said. And I can't speak for the district, but just based on what I observed and being in schools, this timeline is not short enough to some of their perspectives. So right now, I know that we're not in school, but a lot of this is in response to basically our school staff saying they need the support, and but yet at the same time we want to make sure we do it right. To your point, Ms. Vassar, that we so whatever that looks like, if you could provide suggestions of what right looks like as far as a time schedule, that would be very helpful. So that even if we can make some adjustments to this, but if not, we can definitely be aware of it moving forward in the future. Any other comments? We have about 8 minutes left. Any other feedback? Well, I have no problem with letting folks off early. And I really appreciate you all taking the time. And I have no problem with saying that this is one of the great groups that is always willing to pitch in and help, not only offer feedback, but a lot of them have great feedback because they're hands-on and already working hard in the district with our students in schools. And so if you need any additional help with feedback or implementation or assessment accountability, please reach out to us. Ms. Edison, would you like to speak on behalf of the Black Caucus? Would like to give you some time to make comments.
No, I mean, I think what was the comment again? I'm sorry, I just got a text.
No, I'm just giving you a chance to give some final remarks.
Oh, no, yes, I will say that as an educator, I think that we have to really focus on, we understand that trauma and poverty is violence and that our kids are going through trauma, and we have to focus on the healing part of it so that we are being proactive, so that we don't have to rely on these SSOs, SROs to do all of the classroom management work, because that's what it intends, that's what it usually ends up being, because when you're in trauma and you act out, it seems violent and it's really just, cries for help. So I will leave it at that note.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say on behalf of everyone, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate all you do. Please stay safe, stay masked up, and have a good evening.